Alpine want to sell their engine factory. McLaren are engine customers, but they want to be champions.
Hmm.
Ron Dennis said that the only way a team can win championships on the regular is to be a works team.
Ah,
Why, Ammar, should McLaren not buy Viri? That, my friends, is the question.
hello, Ron Dennis.
So it's become official now. Luca De Beer said that the Alpine are going to be closing down the Viry Châtillon power unit factory. All their resources are essentially going to be diverted off into some of their WEC stuff, which is repurposing old Megachrome engines. So they're not actually building their own there; they're just refurbishing. Um, and Alpine are going to head off and become customer Mercedes runners. So I think there's two strands to pull at here, Amar. The first is what the heck are Alpine doing? Is it the right thing to do? And second, the question that we had at the top of this video, should McLaren just go ahead and buy Viry Châtillon and repurpose it for themselves with all of the attendant accoutrement that they already have there? So why don't we start with the first question? Alpine are willingly getting rid of their engine factory and they're going to take on Mercedes customer engines. What do you reckon to that?
I think it's a smart choice for them, right? Only for the fact that they have been having this miserable run since, is it 2016 that they came, 2016 that they came out? 20, I can't remember
Yeah,
exactly.
2016, because 2015 it was still Genii Capital, and they
Exactly.
were they were in fact running Mercedes engines at that point.
Back then, right? So, it's a smart decision to get rid of Renault. I mean, the thing about this is, Shez, I cannot think of Renault being any kind of special in any way. Even I'm thinking about the misery they caused Red Bull for the longest time as well, right? So I think it makes sense, and Alpine very much need to do that because they're under pressure to perform. And I would argue that there are issues up and down the sort of the Alpine chain, but I think it starts with the engine at first because if you have a more reliable engine, and a Mercedes engine, I guess, it is going to put them right in the mix in terms of just being far more competitive than they are. It certainly makes all the sense in the world for them to do this because evidently they cannot get the engine right. Now, again, I will add the caveat that Alpine's got far more issues. I mean, you just have to look at the revolving door that has been team principal slash whatever team executive, whatever you want to call that role, right? It's just been going on for a while, so they have a lot to fix there. And the funny thing is, Carlos had the chance to go to Alpine and he didn't. So he knew he knew what was going to go on there. So my instinct, Shez, is to say yes, they've done the right thing because they've quote unquote cut their losses a little bit and they can refocus on actually being able to perform in races in and out versus worrying about the engine and everything that comes with it. So
But Viri has been around since the early 80s. They introduced the
sure,
very first turbo engine into Formula One.
absolutely.
They then powered various Williamses to championship glory in the mid 90s.
Mhm.
They won titles with the eponymous Renault team in 2005 and 2006. Then went on a mega run of success 2010 to 2013 with Red
On
Bull, the team
Sebastian Vettel, yeah.
that you've just said have spurned them before coming back and reforming their own team. So I mean, I argue that actually Viri has been around for longer than the current Alpine team has been around for. Um, and actually the problem that Alpine have got at the moment is a complete lack of underinvestment in the whole organization. And that has what has led to Viri being jettisoned at the moment because they I feel like Alpine have come in and or Renault, in fact, have come in. They came in 2016 saying that we are going to do this and be as efficient as possible. And that means to me, we're going to try and do F1 on a budget, right? So we're going to have a smaller budget, but we're going to maximize our efficiency. And I've heard this said, this trope argued against so many times that the best way to win in Formula One is to have loads of money and be efficient at the same time.
Sure.
Like that's what Red Bull and Mercedes do, right? They are they don't compromise on one or the other. They have both. And Renault can only get so far with trying to be efficient on one thing. And my worry about what you have just said is that they'll stick a Mercedes donkey in the back of the car, and then they'll realize that the chassis is a problem. So then what are they going to do? Probably the thing that we all think that they're going to do, which is sell the whole team anyway.
Yeah, I think that that's so this is the next step on this evolution, right? And I think this might again all weirdly play into the Andretti timeframe too, right? But I think that this is a team that's in shambles. Remember that you stated rightly that they have not invested enough, and yet they've got a lot of investments from key personalities as well. And no matter what you hear in the public, there are people behind the scenes that want to see returns. And honestly, I mean, I cannot. Can you think of any memorable thing that Alpine has done? I think they had a race win here and there, but who even cares? Who remembers that? And they're arguably as miserable as Steak Sauber this year, although with more promise. And I'm not saying that their pure performance has been that way, but there's nothing memorable about the team, which is something you need to have happen, especially when you're courting celebrities. You're trying to do all of this. So I'm in no way disagreeing with you, right? But you need something to change. You just do, and you need
Yeah, but yeah, yeah, but they just do. Why is it not pump more money in?
well,
Like, okay,
because you have to make the case that pumping more money in will make that happen. Now, and who
well, you can look at the bigger teams on the grid right now and say, look, these guys invested heavily in a way that you guys have not.
Shez, they've also got something to consider.
And as a remember that Renault are in the top five biggest car manufacturers in the world, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not like they're short of money. So why do they think that when Mercedes and a fizzy drinks company essentially are putting in mega bucks to win in Formula One and have done
But
for
it's
years and years
timeline.
and years, that they can do it without?
It's timeline, Shez. At this point in the evolution of this sport, with the current regulations, I mean, just look at this rule set and how even big teams like Mercedes have been baffled. Alpine, and I'm not saying that they are not. They have to make the case of why they can be at the level of Mercedes and Red Bull. And Shez, everything that you said, those investments have been happening for decades. So the question with this is, if Alpine has a longer timeline, a time horizon in terms of getting those results, that's fine. But nothing they do right now will give them. I mean,
This is
I can guarantee you there's no
yeah.
championship coming in the next 10 years. There's probably not even a fight for one coming in what's remaining of this decade, right? It's just not going to happen. So if you're behind the scenes, this is not a question of on-track performance. This is a question of it's an existential question, Chess. Does the team exist in this current format or not? Hey, and forget Mercedes and Red
Do you
Bull.
mean the
Look at
current format with their own engine?
yeah,
Is that what you
but
mean?
look at what everything. I mean, I think that this is look, man. This is a slow moving train that's ending in being put up for sale. That's pretty much what this is. I mean, I'd be shocked if Alpine is not sold within the next year or so, and they're never going to say that up publicly. But that's kind of where you start. They're becoming leaner, right? In a financial sense, purely by getting rid of
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy that because the problem with Alpine and Renault, it's basically Renault, isn't it? Is that they have had 5-year plans and 10-year plans, and they've said in this time we're going to do this, and this time we're going to do this, and then every time they miss their target, they'll just say, okay, we'll just extend and we'll go a bit further, and that never happens. McLaren has shown you right now that you can't plan for something that's going to happen in the future. You need to invest now. Any time to invest
yeah.
is a good time. The problem that they have is that there's a tension between not wanting to put any money in and wanting results now.
Right.
Those two things don't go together.
Absolutely.
And it's something that the Renault management, Luca De Meo, is absolutely guilty of. This is just chucking different people at the same problem, not giving them enough control, sort of dealing with them from the top end and getting in their way more than anything else. Just look at Ottmar Schnafnauer, who did a great interview with the High Performance Podcast this week, where he basically out and out said, I had zero control. What was I supposed to do? It was not my fault. Like I wasn't running the company. Somebody else, I wasn't running the team. The management were running the team. The Renault management were running the team. So in that situation, when you want results now, you don't want to give up control and you don't want to put any money in, it's just not going to happen, is it? And I can't see any evidence from what's happened this week of them selling the engine company at the engine factory that that mentality has changed.
That has not changed. And Alpine, Renault, whatever this version of the team is, are just a weaker form of Ferrari. Like everything that you said, right? Upper level management fiddling in. They are a poor man's Ferrari, really, in this way, in the sense that they just don't have the ability to invest as much as Ferrari, and they don't have the history
But
or
they do have the ability to invest.
they
Of
don't have
course they do.
which has what I'm not arguing that with you. The only reason I'm telling you that they don't have this is by this exact move. They're showing you through their action that they do not have the ability to invest. Hence, they're getting rid of this.
Mm.
And we can move on to the next thing, which is that might be a hidden gem or jewel for another team to pick up, but they are now moving towards the sort of the Haas end of the spectrum, if you will, right? In terms of just trying to be as lean as they can and try to perform. And they might be able to do that for a few years until they can sell the team off, or maybe even sooner if that happens. Look, Formula One is a hot property these days, so they probably have a window of time within which to do it. So
I agree with you. I think that's Flavio's end game here. So let's pivot slightly to the other part of this, which is essentially you've got Viri, which whatever you want to say about Viri, they do have dynos. They've got people that have been there for years and years and years that know Formula One power units. And currently, if we're to believe what the workers there are saying, because they don't want to get sold up, is that they have a working 2026 engine on the dyno, which they think is actually moderately competitive. Now, you can take that with a pinch of salt, but if you look at a team like Red Bull that are starting up a 2026 engine program from scratch, surely there's more benefit in a team like McLaren, who are still customers, picking up basically a ready-built engine power unit factory and putting in the kind of investment that they are capable of.
So you make a very compelling case, and I want to agree, right? I really do. I really think that this makes sense on paper. It absolutely does. It also makes sense with some of the sentiment that Zach Brown has shared over the course of the last few months as well. I get it. He's also, raised the idea. I think he was asked point blank on when Alpine was considering Mercedes and one of the team principals conferences. He was like, "Well, we're gonna kind of see where we're at with this, right?" Because for McLaren, the downside to Alpine becoming a customer too is now you're risking dilution, right, across the board. Like now Mercedes has how many their own works team? They have Alpine, they have Williams. Who else do they have? Am I missing someone? Well, it's McLaren right now, right? And then so there's
Well,
so
they've got McLaren and Williams at the moment, don't they? So,
yeah,
so
they do.
and
But
they've got Aston, but Aston are going to go
they've got
to
right.
Honda.
Yeah, and then Aston's gonna. So that's right. That's what the team I was thinking about. But you know, my tendency is to agree with you. But do they really want to do that? I mean,
Mm.
they are
But that's the question.
they are
That's the question.
peak. They're in this peak window. So look, I would agree with you if there's a way to maintain whatever they're doing right now with Mercedes, and then if there's like a 5-year plan, sure, I can see that happening. Dude, this requires a lot of investment. You just said Viri has like 300 employees. The Mercedes has 3 times as many. You can add staff quickly, but again, this all comes back to investment and ROI and what does that look like? And if anyone can do it, I suppose Zach can. He's really good at this. So I could see that happening.
Well, I mean, McLaren are basically a team, they have an automotive arm now as well, which is actually slightly separate to the race team. Also, don't build their own engines. They get Ricardo to do that for them, not Daniel Ricardo. Ricardo, the engine manufacturers, should probably make that clear.
Good clarification.
Yeah. But they
But
exist to win, right? And as I said, that's what Ron Dennis has said from the beginning.
yeah,
2015 was when that quote came out that he said, the reason that we've gone with Honda, and Honda was a bad example, it just didn't work out for them for various reasons. But you can't hope to in the long term be a winning manufacturer without being a works outfit. Ultimately, Mercedes are going to optimize their power unit for their car. And as soon as they understand the aero requirements that are needed, and they will do in 2026, because they'll have honed both those things together, you have to start to worry that McLaren are going to be left in the wilderness a little bit.
Well, wait a
Yeah.
second. Let me stop you there though, because you just said you keep quoting Ron Dennis, okay? But let's go back to Red Bull, right? How many
Mm.
championships have they won? Like six, seven now? Yeah.
Seven.
They
Yeah,
all
seven,
customer
right? Seven.
engines, no? They're all customer engines, no? And then they've had two dominant
So,
ones
so
stuck in.
you say, yeah, you say that, but at the time that the Red Bull were winning their championships, 2010 to 2013, Renault didn't have their own team. They were they
Understand
were
that. No, no, but I'm just saying as an example,
So
you can
Renault
be, but you can. No?
So Renault were essentially doing what they were doing in the 90s for Williams, which is you are our only team. We are building everything for you, right? And in that situation, you know, Adrian Newey could say to Renault, he opened up his textbook from 1992 and said in 1992 we did this blown diffuser with the Renault engine on the FW14B. Do you think we could do something similar? And Renault started playing around with engine maps and drives and stuff like that, and they created the exhaust blown diffusers and the maps that were needed to run those for Red Bull. So yes, Red Bull were ostensibly a customer, but they weren't really because it was a works relationship that they had with Renault, and that is what I am envisaging that McLaren will do. They could rename Viri as McLaren Power or something. Does that not have a ring to it? They invest a whole heap of money in there, install, start, they've
Chess,
got
you
their
think
own people
invest a
in
whole
there,
heap
and
of
then
money like it's just like pocket change, right? I mean, I think again the devil lies in how these details are executed, right?
Mm,
And then what about
mm.
location, right? I mean, where are McLaren, where's Viri, right? Like,
Okay, yeah, okay, so I knew this would come up as an argument, right? But at the moment, Renault are based in Enstone, right? So Alpine are based in Enstone, and the engine manufacturing is done in Viry in France. So there's already a gap between the two. If you also look at what Red Bull were doing with Honda, they didn't have Honda on site. They had Honda in Sakura sending engines over to them. So the distance doesn't have to be a rate limiting step. It's an obstacle, but it's not a concrete wall that you can't get past. And I'd say that actually having exclusive rights and exclusive access to that expertise is worth more than the cost of having to ferry things from one place to the other. And the other thing I just want to say, right, is if you're talking about stuff that is your own, this week, was it Zach Brown? No, it was Jock Clear at Ferrari was asked, are McLaren reaping the benefits from the fact that they now have their own up-to-date, state-of-the-art wind tunnel? And he said, I can't be sure, but it probably isn't going to hurt. Like everybody else is having correlation issues, and McLaren are running off with it. This is the first season they've had their own wind tunnel. So having stuff in-house that is yours that you can optimize for brings big advantages. Yes, I agree the money is a problem, but Zach Brown is not short of it himself and is not short of being able to get that money if he needs to. So if you take the money equation out of it, because I think it's a surmountable problem, is there a performance advantage to them buying up Viri?
absolutely is. There is. Everything you stated, I cannot disagree with it one bit because it makes sense to have your own. You can twist it, turn it, do everything you want with it within the regulations, I should add, to make sure that you get the results you want. And so that completely makes sense. I think the question again is what are the timelines on this and how does this get executed and what other things need to be put together? So I am sure that Zach Brown is considering this. I mean, he should be lining up to at least inquire about this. I just personally feel like they're in this right window right now where it could end up being a distraction. And then it's not, I mean, they are dominant right now, but it's still a very competitive field. So I guess the question is, can they manage two things at once? And I think that remains to be seen. I mean, Red Bull evidently seems to be doing a good enough job of it. I think it remains to see what Red Bull powertrains looks like. I mean, we keep
Yeah.
hearing stuff here and there, but we won't really know until we
No,
actually.
I agree. And look, I just want to put a caveat to this. Like, I don't think that this should be a slam dunk, do it now and have an engine ready for 2026. I don't think that's what I'm talking about. I think Viri needs more investment for them to have a power unit that's capable of bringing it to everybody else, given that they've been chronically underfunded and have been behind the entire turbo hybrid era since 2014. So I don't think that's what they should do. I think if they want to have a step forward in 2026, the Mercedes engine, the Mercedes power unit is probably the thing to have if what we're hearing from Brixworth is to be believed. But I think going forwards from there, I think Viri's a very, very good plug and play option. And I'm very surprised that this hasn't come up anywhere else. There must be something. But I have to say that there was one bit of news that I think we should probably just finish on this because we're running a bit short of time. That uh, last week, Michael Andretti stepped down from the board of Andretti Automotive, didn't he? From all Andretti Global. And just for a split second, Zach Brown was on the board of directors of the company that were running Andretti Global. He's now off it again. But if we're to believe or at least put credence to this notion that perhaps Alpine is up for sale and perhaps Andretti are the team to buy them, then that Zach Brown momentary appearance, I wonder if that's significant. And I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, that's all I've got. Ammar, I can see that you're not in complete disagreement. Um,
Can't. I can't. I
that's
think this was a very nuanced debate, if that's what we want to call it. But I think it's an opportunity for McLaren. As you said, the question is, what is the trade-off, and can they build a plane and fly it at the same time or not? That's kind of what they're looking at.
this is it. So this is where we hand it over to you guys. Please like, please subscribe. Please drop us a comment. What do you think? Do you think that Alpine are doing the right thing by dropping their power unit? Are McLaren missing a trick by not buying up Viri? Let us know in the comments. We'll read all of them. We'll respond to as many as we possibly can, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.